Welcome to another episode of Living Lives with Khalid. Today, my guest is Leen. She is a designer that takes vintage products and transforms them into complete different wear. And it really looks super artistic. And she's all about sustainability. She's also done a deal with Nike to supply their masks during at the peak of the pandemic, which helped a lot. And so I'm very happy to have you on the podcast. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm
So,
great. So, Leen, you grew up in the UAE and Canada, if I'm correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I was born and raised in Abu Dhabi, and then I'm Syrian originally.
Okay.
So when you're born here, you don't get a passport, unfortunately. Um, so when the Syrian revolution started, my family packed up and moved to Toronto. Um, to get a passport and also open up more opportunities for me and my siblings. So I finished off high school in Toronto. I went to university in Canada, in London, Ontario. And then I lived there for about 8 or 9 years. Stayed there for a bit after I graduated university and just did some internships and kind of like dabbled. First, I started off in the entertainment industry, actually. I
Mhm.
thought that's the route that I wanted to go into. And then when I moved back here, I just really started falling in love with the fashion industry. I studied media and journalism, so I knew I wanted to go into something with journalism. So when I had been working in the entertainment industry, I was doing blog posts for entertainment companies to help like promote events. So I would do like recaps of festivals or whatever. Hated the industry. Um, Super male dominant. And then when I came to Dubai, I started doing internships at fashion magazines.
Okay.
So I started off at Savoir Flair, I think when I was 18 or 19. So I was still in university. Um, and then did a couple freelancing jobs as internships while I was in university for magazines in Dubai. And then when I moved back to Dubai, I worked for Grazia Middle East and really enjoyed that industry. But I felt like it was a little too um, office job be
Okay.
and less creative and hands-on, and I really was leaning more or found myself leaning less towards the journalism side. Although I love to write, I love every aspect of journalism, I just felt like I was striving for something a bit more crafty and naturally kind of found my way into designing. So I didn't study fashion design.
Mhm.
I'm self-taught. And yeah, that's how I ended up kind of
Okay.
doing what I do now.
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack. I think what we'll do, let's start with the designs, how it started, how you decided to break off from the office jobs or the corporate world or trying ventures with others, working for others and trying to do
Mhm.
something more creative. So we'll discuss that and then we'll circle back a bit towards your life and how it happened to shape you to be who you are. And so when did you know that, okay, this is the time to break off? I know when I met you, you started
Okay.
the Sound Streetwear and you
Yeah.
weren't necessarily, you were manufacturing a lot of clothes, but you weren't changing vintage clothes
Yeah.
into cool
So
pieces. So when did you realize, did you start while you already had a job or did you decide to quit and then start Sound Streetwear?
sound
What was
off.
your
Yeah.
pattern?
Okay. So basically, while I was doing my office jobs, I felt the need to like do something crafty. So I took it more as like a hobby, as instead of just having a full career transformation.
Mhm.
Like my family's based in Abu Dhabi and my work life and social life was in Dubai. So in order for me to like stay in Dubai, I needed a full-time job to finance staying there. Otherwise, why would I be in Dubai? I can just go to Abu Dhabi and be with my family. um, so I didn't quit. I stuck it out, and my mentality was just like take it as a hobby. Like I said, I'm self taught, so I didn't think, not that I think like I'm having like imposter syndrome now. I'm just like doing what I like and I'm making a career out of it. But I really didn't think that like it was going to pick up so much to the point that people would want to purchase these rework designs. So it was definitely something that was like a hobby for me to like fuel that fire that I needed to have creatively. But also I needed my full-time job to, one, finance my life and also finance my hobby. So I launched Sound On, which was never intended initially to go the sustainable route. It was just supposed to be like a streetwear brand that is a form of art and expressionism. And I always wanted it to be a collaborative brand. So I wanted and still am striving to collaborate with artists or photographers or digital creators, whatever it may be, just so that it's more of a collective as opposed to like an individual brand. And while I was, working on my full-time job, that was financing that. Production costs money, shoots costs money, like all these things. It's not like as simple as it sounds. Like, oh, hey, I'm going to start a streetwear brand. Like, you need a trade license, you need paper. There's a lot of payments and you need money for it. So yeah, I stuck it out with my full-time job until I felt like it was kind of if the brand was picking up and taking out too much of my time and I couldn't balance both, then I would drop the full-time job and pursue that full-time. But when you launch something, it takes a while for your baby to like grow. So yeah, definitely would have been a silly mistake for me to just quit my job right off the bat and just be like, I'm doing this full-time. How did it go from it being a streetwear brand to it becoming all about sustainability and zero waste? Just super organically, honestly. While I was in the process of figuring out like which manufacturers to use, how to manufacture, what fabrics to source, where to source them from, I was starting to realize like just how much waste goes into it. And, from simple things that you don't even think about, like carbon footprint from flying out this piece of fabric to here, and then the water waste that goes into producing it, and also the dyes and just carbon emission. Like, there's so much waste that goes into it. And I was never intending on mass producing. I just always wanted small batches. And even with my small batches, like there was just so much excess waste. Whenever I tried to go a more sustainable route, whether it was like sourcing from recycled fabrics, but locally, I wanted to always do everything local. So fabric sourcing local, manufacturing local. There was also a lot of roadblocks with that. Sustainability is still a new topic here and in the UAE. And, something as simple as sourcing recycled fabric isn't as easy as you'd think it would be in the UAE, whereas like in the States or Europe or even Bali, super big there. It was just really, really difficult for me to find it here. So I was just kind of like, why am I putting so much effort into, and finding also like a lot of roadblocks and no's, just not even just knows, why am I putting so much effort into something that clearly isn't going to be feasible for me? Let me figure out a way to make it feasible. And so I just started collecting fabric waste, working with charity organizations here in the UAE that donate pre-loved clothes that are damaged and no good for resale or whatever. And I would take that, or I would source vintage pieces from Toronto thrift stores that I used to go to growing up and rework those. So just basically trying to follow a zero waste policy and taking something that is old or unwanted, or vintage pieces are super desired right now, but there's still in such excess of them. Like, you're gonna find vintage pieces everywhere in every country. And making it a little bit more one of a kind, a little bit more special by reworking them. Yeah.
And how did you transition to that realization that you needed to? You realized that it was very difficult to manufacture recyclable things. So, what made you decide? Okay, I need to create my own. Was it? Did you remember the store that you went to in Toronto? Was that like? How did you connect the dots? Okay, I want to do
I have
vintage.
always upcycled for fun, and I
Okay.
never thought that it was something that people would want, because it was just something like I would take pieces from my closet, and actually I would take pieces from my sister's closet when I was younger, and I'd be like, oh, she doesn't want this anymore, and like just rework it to fit me. And so when I started learning how to sew and pattern making, I just started experimenting with my closet and posting it on Instagram. And it was never meant to be part of Sound On. It was just
Okay.
me reworking, posting it on my personal social media page. And then I remember this year's Soul DXB was canceled, but the year before, so that was 2019, actually, um, I needed an outfit for Seoul, and I really didn't feel like spending money on a one-off piece of clothing that I was going to wear for one day and never wear again, because
Yeah.
everyone goes super extravagant and extra at Seoul with their outfits. And so I just wanted to be a bit more feasible about it and have my own personal touch. So I just took a couple of my streetwear pieces and reworked them and wore them to Seoul for 3 days. And everyone was coming up to me and complimenting me. And then when they heard that I reworked it, like they showed a lot of interest, not
Okay.
just in the outfit, but like
Yeah.
in
And
purchase.
purchasing. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just kind of was like, is this a thing? Like, are people interested in this? So
Yeah.
a lot of people were like a lot. I really didn't expect that. A lot of people were showing love, um, actually asking to make for commissions. So then I realized like that is something that is a bit untapped here. You know, there's a lot of
Mhm.
streetwear brands
Yeah.
in Dubai and in the region, not even in Dubai. There's a lot of sustainable brands in the region where they use organic or recycled materials, but there's literally no one else here that is taking pre-loved or vintage attire and reworking them. And that was
Yeah.
something that I was already doing and kind of had a following for on my own personal page.
Okay.
So like, why not utilize that and actually make a business out of it? I mean, clearly I'm passionate about it, I enjoy it, and so why not like sell it to
Yeah.
people?
No, it's amazing. I think it's so cool how it just worked organically. And it's so funny that you said you didn't think people would it wouldn't resonate with people, because you know how artists always say, oh, it's just a normal piece, oh, it's nothing. But actually to others, like I've seen your work, it's super, super incredible. And it shows tremendous talent.
It's because we of where we live. Like, I'm sure in Toronto, all of my friends would have loved pieces like this, but I was super hesitant about it in Dubai because people love brand labels. Like, they love brand names. They love rocking like the newest piece and the latest designer brand. And as much as people try to give off the persona of them, being hipster or like
Yeah.
sustainable or whatever, like, we live in Dubai, and in Dubai, materialism is a big part of the lifestyle. So
Mhm.
taking something that is pre-loved, like the concept of pre-loved, vintage, used, isn't like a luxury uh,
Yeah.
idea.
See,
So
it's not, I don't think it's luxurious, but at the same time, because they're one of a kind and they're super
it's
unique, I
unique.
think it
Yeah,
creates that luxury feel, because no one else
exactly.
has this exact same piece that you have. Plus,
Yeah.
it's your pieces demand attention, right? It shows that, hey, I'm here. And so I think people love the statement they make. And also it's something like what happened to you in Seoul. People will stop you because they don't see it anywhere else, right? So I think that's the sweet spot that you've hit. And also it's just art. It's great to see someone wearing literally art, because that's what it looks like, at least to me. And I've told you this off of the podcast, that I think it's such cool, a cool idea that you're doing, and it's clearly shows your passion. So my next question for you is, are you gonna completely switch to just reworking vintage clothes, or are you gonna continue your streetwear brand and manufacturing as part of the business? And what's your vision for it as well?
So obviously, if you want to own a business, you have to think bigger. Can't just stay at a standstill. So like ideally, I do have to think about how to maintain sustainability. This is a roadblock that I'm dealing with right now, how to maintain being sustainable, but also growing the business. I'm definitely going to continue reworking. I have been collecting and sourcing fabric scraps from various people, charities, factories, warehouses for quite some time, and like figuring out how to make a collection based off of that without just one-off pieces, but also maybe how to create duplicates of. But also I do want to focus on recycled materials as well. So if I do have a design and people want it mass produced, I still do low inventory. I would never mass produce, but if they would want them in a couple of different options, then the best and most feasible option is to introduce and integrate recycled materials. So recycled cotton and recycled plastic. So my most recent collection, it was like 2-piece sets in 4 different colorways. They're all made from recycled plastic. And so it's all done locally. So there's a place in Dubai that I source the fabric from, where essentially they create yarn fabric out of plastic bottles as a polyester replacement. We all know what polyester is. So rather than producing new polyester, which is essentially producing new plastic to integrate into your clothing, just take recycled plastic bottles and, break that down into new polyester.
Yeah. Going off of that, with fast fashion becoming the norm, when you're talking about giants like Zara, H&M, all these big companies, these corporations, do you see sustainability playing a role in the future? And do you see them shifting towards a more sustainable route, or is that too far ahead?
It's hard. It's hard because I see brands shifting. It's hard for me to answer because, I do see brands shifting. I mean, H&M has already created a sustainable line. Zara has already created a sustainable line. But the thing is with huge fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M, I don't believe that they're necessarily doing that to take the brand to be fully sustainable. They're just doing it to market themselves in a better way and angle themselves in a more positive light. Sustainability is a super hot topic right now, especially coming off of 2020. More and more people who, I don't want to say didn't care about the environment, but like more and more people are understanding the environmental impact that is happening. And so, sustainability is starting to become a super important topic to discuss. And even here in the region, some people, just as my parents, as a prime example, my father has been in this country since the very start, since when it was nothing. And when I told him about my business plan and what I wanted to do, they just didn't understand it. They understand sustainability, but they just didn't see it working here in the region because.
And did that make them less supportive, your dad or parents in general?
I wouldn't say less supportive. They were just a bit concerned. They were like, why don't you do it in Canada? I mean, we still have our, home there. I still have a life there. My friends are still there. So they were just like, they were kind of more like, wouldn't it be easier for you to do that there? My point was, because no one's doing it here, it's important to educate people on it. But even with that, like, there has been so much positive feedback and support. And I honestly think that the sustainable community here, or the outreach or education towards sustainability, not just, with recycling of materials, but also in the fashion industry, is starting to become super hot right now, and more people are becoming educated about it, and therefore understanding the importance and value of it. So a lot of brands in the region, international brands, but have headquarters here in the Middle East, have been showing support, or it also letting me know that they're starting to integrate a sustainability campaign in the next coming year. And so it's nice to see that, big brands, not just local brands, big international brands are starting to lean towards that, and actually, make a difference, whether it's in their production or how they material sourcing, whatever it may be, just anything towards being a bit more conscious. But then there's also brands that are taking advantage of this wave, this popular sustainable wave, and like just using it as a marketing tactic to be like, oh, see, look at us, we're sustainable. I recently watched Hassan Minaj.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I watched an episode. You should watch it, actually. It's the fast fashion episode.
Okay.
And he discusses Zara and H&M, okay, and kind of just like demolished them. And he discusses how, sustainability has been a hot topic and yada, 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 and how H&M launched the sustainable line, and they did this whole pop-up and ordeal about it. And then when it actually came down to looking at, let's say, a T-shirt that they claimed to
yes, I saw this episode. Yes.
The only thing that was sustainable about the T-shirt was like the little pocket or something in it, and the rest was just same old. So, and yet they can claim that it's made sustainably, like legal, on a legal standpoint, because that one little tiny percentage of the whole grand scheme of the T-shirt was made from a recycled material, or was made from,
because they're strong lobbyists, so it's very difficult to create laws that actually uphold the statement of sustainability.
So
I mean, it's yeah, but that's the sad part, is that it's not only like it's not unique to the fashion industry. It's within all industries. Like when you talk about food packaging and people are telling you, oh, they're using biodegradable products, environmentally friendly, it's all marketing. And the end of the day, it's really not. You need to read the disclaimers. I mean, there are some more biodegradable than others, but as a modern world, I think the entire sustainability is 85, if not 90 to 95% just marketing, and then 5% reality.
100%. And that's what I mean when I say it's hard for me to answer that question, because there genuinely are some brands that are actually changing their whole model, business model, everything from start to finish, to actually be more sustainable, whether it is no longer producing products, but making clothes that are made to order to completely eliminate waste, or using organic material, recycled material, low MOQs. So like there's just so many different aspects of brands that are actually doing that. And then there's the fashion brands that are riding the wave and are creating a sustainable collection. But then after that collection is done and released and whatever, they go back to producing how they used to produce. So like, what did we benefit from creating that one sustainable collection?
Or collection,
It literally made zero difference.
It's unfortunate, but I think this is also like, sorry, could you say that again?
Like me just recycling one time and being like, I did it. Like, I made
Yeah.
an impact. It doesn't actually do anything. It was just kind of for like an Instagram marketing
Mm-hmm.
tool or for like an influencer marketing tactic to be like, oh, and PS, this one shirt that you purchase plants one tree, or like gives a kid in Africa a pair of shoes, and like, great. And then what did the rest of your collection
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
when you make
And like you
other
said,
people?
you don't even know, okay, you're planting one tree, but let's say for different products, it doesn't even have to be with fashion, but how many trees had to be cut down to actually make the product? So yeah, you're planting, it depends on the industry. But also, so I think this is a good segue, since we talked about big corporations, to dive into your collaboration with Nike. How did that come about? Who approached who? So if there's, let's say, a new designer right now who's either creating fashion or shoes or whatever it may be, how could they approach a corporate brand like Nike? How can you collaborate with them? And what were some of the benefits that you found that came from that?
It happened super organically. Essentially, I had just started realizing that I wanted to, incorporate the reworked pieces into Sound On, into the clothing brand. And I was discussing the best way to do it organically with a friend of mine who was an influencer and content creator. And she was just helping me, brainstorm ideas. And this was during peak of lockdown during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, oh, we've been noticing that a lot of brands have been sending out products to regional influencers, or not just influencers, doesn't necessarily have to be someone with a huge following, just someone in the region that you like what they're doing, support what they're doing, whether it's artists or, musicians, and, ask them to basically post content from the comfort of their own home. So kind of like an impromptu shoot at their own home wearing your product. So like influencer seating, if you must. And so I messaged a bunch of girls. Some were friends, some I've never met before. And I was just kind of like, hi, this is what I'm doing. Explain the whole spiel of the brand with reworked vintage and pre-loved clothing and fabric waste. And, obviously I was careful to message who I did. I wanted obviously us to have, similar beliefs and ethos. So a lot of girls were super passionate about sustainability or vegans or, like just really care about this particular topic. And one of the girls I had known from the industry in Dubai, the fashion entertainment industry, and I didn't know at the time that she works at Nike. And because when I had met her, we both used to work at Media City.
Okay.
She was in an advertisement company and I was working at Grazia. So I messaged her. She was like, yeah, super down, amazing. She took a picture and posted on her Instagram. And then like not even a week later, like her boss at work was like, okay, guys, so like we're launching a campaign within the region and we're moving towards sustainability. Does anyone know any sustainable designers in the region that we could work with?
Amazing.
And she was just kind of like, oh, actually, not even a week ago, this, and this happened. And then, yeah, she sent me a voice note and was just like, FYI, someone from my team is going to be contacting you. I didn't know what about, honestly. I thought it was to like maybe send me a gift, like a pair of shoes. I didn't know what it would be. I was like, oh, okay. And then someone from her team basically contacted me and was like, we're launching this whole campaign about sustainability, and we have a shoe that is a vapor rack shoe made from sustainable materials, clothing made from sustainable materials, and we really want to work with like regional sustainable designers. I wasn't the only one. There was a girl also, NG. She has a clothing brand as well. She made tote bags and masks as well. And yeah, so they worked with us, which was really cool, to take their dead stock football jerseys from past collections and rework them into something new. So
Okay.
face masks or tote bags or whatever. And which was amazing, super cool. But yeah, I guess to like relay back to your question, like how would a young designer in the region try to target someone from like a brand like Nike or Adidas or whatever? I guess the best advice I would say is to one, be consistent and like constantly put out new work. Just because you did something once doesn't mean that anyone owes you anything. You have to prove to people and to brands and companies that like you're consistent, you're creative, you can come up with new things, and you're reliable in terms of your work ethic. And also, this is something that I'm constantly preaching to people: collaboration. You never know what could come out of a collaboration or a partnership. And when you do so, don't expect payments out of it. I've done so much work for people for free, not expecting anything back, honestly, just so that we can both boost each other's platforms together, support each other. And so that in the future, maybe if something were to come up work-wise or an opportunity, that person would potentially maybe have me on mind and be like, yeah, she's super cool to work with, and we did something together and it went really well, and here's her contact info. And I feel like in Dubai and in the industry, that is how most people get the work that they do. It's through networking and connections, and also through collaborations.
Yeah. And I think in the world as well, you're like just elevating one another, right? And I think that's what the whole, as a community, that's what you should be doing. And I feel like the world, I mean, arguably, given the recent political stuff that's been happening globally, I feel like the world's becoming smaller and smaller. And so I think like if you take me or you, for example, for me, Bahrain is home, Saudi is home, Colorado is home, Dubai is home. So, and for you, it's Toronto, Dubai, potentially Abu Dhabi. So we have all these different communities that we have become a part of and somehow integrated within them as well. And so I don't know about you, I feel not a responsibility or duty, but rather like I want to help out. I want to help everyone elevate themselves, and if I can lend a hand, why not, and it's not why I started this podcast. I was hoping that people will learn from these podcasts, and maybe someone out there will benefit from it, and that would be I've accomplished my job. And at the same time, if I can support as well, especially now I don't have a tremendous following, but once I do, I'd love to try to push anyone that I can that has ideas like yours or anything, because it's what life is about, right? We help one another, and I think that's the beauty of life.
It also helps elevate what you're trying to do. I'm well aware that like I'm just one person doing this whole brand, and as creative or as amazing or whatever as anyone thinks that they are, you're always going to be better with help and fresh ideas and fresh perspective. And people come from so many different experiences and backgrounds that could help elevate any project. So collaboration isn't just about like networking and growing your outreach or whatever. It's also about like making sure that the product that you're releasing is going to be better than you even thought it was going to be.
And even more than just the product itself, you learn from different perspectives, right? You might see someone's process that you're collaborating with, and you're like, oh, why don't I incorporate what he or she is doing in their process into mine, because it works, or it actually solves XYZ of my issues that I've been facing in my creative process, or in whatever, if it's not a creative aspect.
You need to ask for help, like by no means am I a graphic designer, for example. But when I released my most recent collection of sets, I really felt like what would have elevated the recycled sets that I created would have been some really, really cool illustrations embroidered onto the piece. And a friend of mine who's also a huge sustainability activist, and is an amazing illustrator and graphic designer, doesn't have a huge following or whatever, just I genuinely love her work. We collaborated on that, and she created such amazing pieces, and I honestly feel like that is what the sets needed to give it that edge. And every time I do pop-ups or even online, or like, whenever I'm doing shoots or whatever, the first thing people notice are those illustrations.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you mentioned online store and pop-ups. Are those the main two venues where you sell your clothes?
Yeah, so I sell online and through Instagram, but mostly
send me the link later. I'll also tag it and put it in the description so people can
sell online. I sell through Instagram. Pop-ups. I used to be stocked at a boutique in Abu Dhabi. And then I just felt like during all my pop-ups, I needed to like bring in more of my inventory. And I felt like, see, the issue is, and this is where young business owners need to be smart with where they stock. If you can sell it by yourself on your own platform, then do it. It's the best way because you're going to get 100% of the profits. The second you start outsourcing them to like different boutiques and stuff, they're either going to take a huge percentage of it, let's say 30 to 40% on consignment. So that's still a loss.
Yeah.
Or let's say they purchase your products. So like you deal with a fashion buyer, which is amazing. You made a sale, whatever, and it's bought in bulk. They're still purchasing it at a discounted price because obviously they're purchasing it at bulk. So if you have the clients or the footfall, let's say, to sell the products yourself, then that's the best way to do it, and just really focus on like your digital marketing. But if you're really struggling to get people to notice your brand or follow through with the payment or whatever, and you want to partner up with someone like a boutique or an e-commerce platform that is well known, has a lot of foot traffic and is guaranteed to make sales, then going for consignment obviously is not that big of a difference because a sale is a sale.
Yeah. And what's the venue that worked the best for you? Is it pop-ups? Where you sell the most?
I think pop-ups are the best for me because I get to be there and talk to people and share like the whole narrative of the piece and just really explain that like I sourced this piece myself. When people hear that like I handmade that piece myself, everything was done by me, they get even more excited about the piece and just have to get it. With online, it takes away that personal experience.
100%.
Kind of like you have a conversation, a back and forth conversation with the clients. They follow you on social media. They talk to me about it. And sometimes I've gotten customers who I've met at pop-ups, and then they would ask me to do like a special commission for them. So, with that, it kind of even helps with more opportunities. Whereas with online, it's just you and yourself and your computer and just kind of doing transactions.
Definitely, yeah.
Especially with a young brand, people need to like know and understand the young brand.
Ethos, yeah, they need to see the designer, the creator, the story, and resonate, and people like to feel connected, right? So they become kind of not a part of your story exactly, but like they share your story because they're listening to the source of the story, right? So I think that definitely helps with sales. And do you have a dream pop-up Do you have like a goal on a pop-up where you definitely want to be a part of?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do a pop-up in Toronto for so long, and I really, really thought that I was going to be able to do it this summer. But then obviously COVID and everything happened, and I think that hopefully by summer of 2021, I would like to finally get my Toronto pop-up and do kind of like a homecoming
Amazing.
back there, because
The homecoming
as,
line.
as 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 you were talking about, like it would be so silly of me not to utilize my connections and the friends that I have there to help elevate a pop-up in Toronto. I know a lot of people in the entertainment industry, in the music industry, a lot of creatives that I could collaborate with to help elevate it, help me pick the perfect location, market it the best way. There's so many cities that like I'm just a complete stranger to. I've never lived in Paris. I've been to Paris a bunch of times, but I don't know the city inside and out. Toronto, I know inside and out.
Imagine if it's like each city is a river, right? And you can see stones underneath the river, and the stones in Toronto are more apparent to you. So you know where to step into the river. You're not falling in.
Exactly. Like I would know the do's and don'ts before even having to consult anyone about it. And I need to utilize that. And I think that it would be, exciting for my friends as well. A lot of my friends in Toronto have been supporting me in the brand and purchasing pieces, and I ship it to Canada, and it's amazing. And they wear it and they tag me, but to actually like have a physical
I don't want to sound super cheesy, but this is the theme. Everything's organic for you, and Toronto feels like the organic route.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I wouldn't want to put myself, like, it's still a young brand. I wouldn't want to put myself through such a headache and like hectic process just for a simple pop-up. Where with a pop-up, you're never guaranteed sales. That's fate is in your hands. You kind of have to reel those buyers, those customers in. So if you can make the process as smooth and organic and easy as possible, then obviously don't take the hard road,
Definitely. I remember the day we met and you were discussing to me your brand. You just recently started it, and to see where you've come, to all the listeners, like it's a tremendous change. It's huge. You've changed. You've matured a lot more. Not that you weren't, not that you were immature back then, but like you've learned from experience. You've thrown yourself out there. You dived head first, and you've evolved so much. And I'm sure you're going to continue evolving. It is upcoming, and I have so much faith in you, and I think it's going to continue to be uphill from here. And of course, and now that we've discussed more of like your brand, who you are, what your goals and visions are for the brand, I would love to talk about who you are as a person. Were you always this confident? Were you always pursuing what you wanted, whether not necessarily in business wise, but in life? What was it like growing in your family? And do you have a lot of siblings? What's life like for you? On a more personal note.
Super lucky to have really, really supportive parents. And they're really big cheerleaders of mine, but also on a real note, they're Arab parents. So they are my biggest skeptics as well. And this wasn't something that was easy for me to convince my parents to get on board with. They still don't understand me. Like my mom just always like murmurs like I just don't get this one. My sister's in business, my brother's in business, my dad's in business, just super by the book. And then I just kind of came out and was like, I'm just going to recycle clothing. Like they just don't understand it. My mom hates thrifting. Hates thrift culture. She literally like holds back puke when I take her into any thrift store because of that thrift smell. She just doesn't get it, but she's still supportive of it. So it says a lot about them.
Definitely.
And I think that, honestly, for anyone who has like doubters or like parents stopping them, I think they'll still appreciate the hustle. So if you're doing whatever you're doing and it may seem a little bit weird to them, if they see that you're hustling and grinding and like really, really working your best, they're going to appreciate it and applaud it. And I think that is when they started getting on board with it. Every time they would want to catch up or talk to me about something, I would have something new or a new opportunity to fill them in on. And like, they wouldn't even expect it or anticipate it. So yeah, that's when they started like getting more on board with what I was doing. But I've always been super stubborn and outspoken. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. I have an older brother and an older sister. And so I think that, and I have quite a big age gap between both of them. So my sister is 5 years older and my brother is 9 years older. And I think I always really wanted to fit in with them. So I always kind of like matured myself a little bit to hang out with my sister's friends or my brother's friends and kind of make myself sound older, which I think made myself seem more confident. And then it resonated with my overall personality as I grew and matured. To just be super outspoken and not afraid to say what I wanted to say. And I think that is one of my positive traits now trying to run a business, a small business, is that I know what I want and I know what I don't want, and I'm not willing to compromise. And I've had to be, especially as a girl here, I've had to be super, super, super firm at times. And eventually it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. And, I'm left with nothing because I just can't find what I want. But, also with patience, you will figure it out.
Definitely. And once your will is so powerful and so set in stones, everything that you want will happen. And if it doesn't, then something better will come along, because you just can't fail when you have that stubbornness,
I also think that I don't put a lot of pressure on myself. I'm a pretty lax person.
Yeah.
So, if something fails utterly, it's not that big of a deal to me. I'm not a type A personality at all. I'm pretty easygoing. So,
yeah. I mean, I don't believe in failures. I think you learn from them, right? As cheesy as it sounds, that's...
My sister and I are two complete opposites. Like, she is type A to the T. If she got an A- on a test, it was like the end of the world. Like, she just like...
It's the same with my younger sister too. Like, if she got anything less, I mean, both my sisters were 4.0 and my younger sister 3.99. So they're very...
I think because my sister was like that, I just naturally became anything but. And no one was putting all this pressure on her. My parents never did. She just was naturally this type of person. And so I just felt like, it's not the end of the world if what you wanted doesn't happen. If anything, like, it's meant to be. So I feel like that's super important. If you get super bummed out about something not going your way, and holding a grudge about it, it's really, really gonna start to like deteriorate like how you feel about your project or your passion or your company or whatever. Just kind of like
always let go and live. Life is easy. It's I mean, it's complex.
Yeah, I chill and see how it goes. I definitely think that I need to improve on like putting myself out there a little bit more. I'm a bit reserved at times because I really, really hate going on about like work at social settings or whatever. I think that, when people go out to socialize, it's just, let's not talk about work. But I definitely think that incorporating it in as a networking tactic would obviously be really, really necessary and important, especially for someone who's freelancing.
Yeah. Plus, to you, I feel like it's not necessarily work. I think we need a better word because, like, it's something you love. It's a hobby that you've transformed into a business. So, yeah,
Exactly.
but work has just this negative connotation for some reason. I think it's because the majority of the people are not even happy with what they're doing, you know? But I think when you find that sweet spot, even going on a social setting, why wouldn't you speak about your work? Because you're passionate about it, you love it, you're proud of it. And so
Yeah.
it makes, sorry about the pun, but it makes organic sense for you to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's great. And I think we need more of this in the region. I think people are starting to be more active. I hear of a lot of people starting pop-ups, starting brands, starting tech companies. And so I think it's definitely very nice to see that there's traction, there's movement, and there's evolution in the region because it's cool.
I think another important thing is confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Super, super, super important, especially if you want to grow your business and put yourself out there. Like, just really, you cannot think or care about what other people are saying.
100%.
I remember when I first wanted to start doing this, and like my Instagram was public and whatever, and like it was such a big deal to like my cousins back in Syria or like my family. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, why does Leen have an public Instagram? Like, why is she posting pictures of herself? Blah, 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 blah. Like, I just didn't really care, to be honest. And I don't care. And
Yeah.
if anyone has anything bad to say about it, I block them. You should
Yeah.
see my blocked list on Instagram. There's a block. Actually, I have so many people blocked, and it's not random people like cyberbullying me. It's like family members that just
Yeah.
have something to say about me being public about my life. If you don't like it, I don't care. Like, block.
Yeah, it's your life. It should be your freedom. It's none of their business. I mean, and when in one hand, we don't understand their perspective, and I'm not saying that we must or we should, but
Yeah.
it just makes me when I see that stuff happier that that I'm not like that. You know, that
Yeah.
I'm too busy working on my own grass. I'm too busy like if this makes you happy, do it. If it's not harming or hurting others physically, mentally, then you know, who cares? You're not paying my bills, you're not living my life.
I've
So
normalized separating my work and personal life so much. And my coping mechanism is like, if you don't like it, I'll just block you. And some people take it so personally, and they'll be like, like, how could she? Blah blah blah. It's not a personal thing. It's just that me doing my work and striving for what I want to do. If it affects you so much to
I
like
don't
go
see
out of your way, then and you're refusing to unfollow me, then how about I do it for you?
it. Hey, that sounds logic.
You're the one refusing to unfollow me and then going out of your way to like make me feel bad about it. So I'm just gonna do the job for you. There, bye.
I mean, I can't argue with that. Honestly, it makes sense, and I think that like people need to just realize that they can't push their own beliefs onto others. If you have a certain way of living or a certain belief, then have a conversation about it. Like, don't you think that, like, let's say one of your family members saw, let's say, a picture that they didn't agree with. They could message you, be like, why do you post things like these? I'm not asking from it like to put you down, but I just want to understand where you're coming from, and maybe, you know, understand that the culture has changed if they're older, you know, and you learn.
In an ideal world, Khalid, that would be how conflict is resolved for me and you.
It's not even conflict. It's just like
conflict is resolved, you know. For me, that is an ideal scenario, but the reality of it is that is just not
different.
how so, and I just definitely run my life based off of positive energy, and if I feel any sort of negative energy or like evil eye or whatever it may be, coming in any direction, then the best way for me to do it is just avoid, and just continue being happy in my own bubble, doing what makes me happy.
Yeah. What do they say? ابعد عن الشر وغني له. Right? But it's cool. No, I think it's a great mentality to have. It's very apparent why you've followed your passions and why you've become a designer. It's this positive attitude. It's this love, not only for life, but for every day, and not willing to settle, And I think that's something we need, more people need to realize and wake up, that your life is in your hands. It's very easy to forget that every day is never gonna be repeated. It's like you just wake up, you're in a routine, or you wake up, you don't feel like getting up, or whatever it may be that you're doing. We tend to forget that this is life, ironically.
Yeah.
It just becomes background noise. So I think once people realize, no, I control the steering wheel, this confidence will come naturally. And if you're not confident, fake it. One day you're gonna make it. One day it's gonna be reality.
It will. You will start to learn to because while you're faking it, you're going to start to realize, oh, actually, like.
Yeah, and I think there were also some studies showing with everything, even like if you're smiling, even if you're not happy, but you continuously smile and smile and smile, you're going to feel yourself getting better, because your brain is sending out those smiling signals, and you're trying to lift yourself up. And all it takes is a step forward, and then a collective of all these steps, right?
Yeah.
So if you had a piece of advice you'd give any upcoming designer, and also any individual throughout any industry, what would it be in terms of business and in terms of life?
I think my advice would mesh into both, so business and personal. Put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to just go for it. If you, like, internships are so important to meet people in the industry. Even if you're doing it for free, just put your ego to the side for a little bit and just grow and learn. You can never learn too much, and you can never stop growing. Not to sound cheesy, but like, I've done so many internships in my life, all for free, never made a cent, and I did it with a smile on my face every single day, as if I was a paid employee, because I was enjoying it, and I knew that eventually I would benefit from it, whether it was a name on a resume to get a paid job at the end of the day, or to grow my network, or to learn from industry leaders, whatever it may be. Put yourself out there, start reaching out to people, and just, keep growing. I am constantly telling, there's a lot of girls that I speak to, like younger girls that are like, oh, I want to work in the fashion industry. Like, that's a dream of mine. And I'm like, oh, like what in the fashion industry do you want to do? Because there's so many different aspects to it. It's not just fashion design. And then they'll just kind of stare blankly into space and be like, oh.
It's like a script that they were taught or memorized rather than it's being reality.
I mean, maybe it's not a script. They do want to work in the fashion industry. They're just not properly educated on the different realms that it can go into. I mean, I was like that too. I was like, I want to go into fashion journalism. And then when I actually worked in the industry, I was like, actually, I think I'm a more creative, hands-on type of person. I still loved it. It just wasn't something I could do forever long term. And so practicing, trying out different fields, realizing that, oh, this didn't work out for me. Or, oh, actually, I really like it, but I'm not that good at it. It's okay. Like, that's an okay thing to go through until you realize what you're good at, what you're passionate about. And if people, if you're worried about what people think, then that's honestly the biggest mistake that you.
It's an internal thing they need to realize. You need to cut off what others are saying out of your frequency, and just,
because those people that are going to be giving you a hard time, as soon as you actually get a big break with whatever it is you're trying to do, they're going to be the people that are like, I was there from the very beginning, like so proud of you, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, it's happened to me too. Not that I'm claiming I've had a big break or anything. Like, I just think that it's happened to me too, where when I told people, you know, I wanted to start getting into fashion, they were kind of like, oh, okay, you know, like, cool. And then when I started doing pop-ups or whatever, like those people started showing up and being like, yeah, you know, like that's my girl. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's just the way it works, unfortunately. But at the same time, you know, that's how you know who's real and who's not at the same time.
I just think that, putting yourself out there and learning is so important. I am still learning. I mean, I just took like an online digital marketing course during lockdown and like was doing Zoom classes and whatever. And I just turned 26, you know, like there's no harm in still taking like online courses and learning once you hit a certain age and like you're supposed to be done with your master's or done with your undergrad or whatever, like that's it, work should start, no more learning. Like I think that's a silly mentality, and I think that, you know, you should constantly keep evolving or growing. Definitely. And maybe you mastered one craft, so then grow into another and then see if you can merge the two.
I always think you should pick new things and try new things and see what you like. But also, there is one thing I want to emphasize that you said. A lot of people, or there are people that know what they want to be doing and love what they do, but the majority don't. And most people find out what they want to do by doing what they don't want to do. So you touched on that, and so I just wanted to emphasize it. And also, when is your birthday? Is it today or yesterday?
It was yesterday. It was January 11th.
Happy birthday, or belated birthday. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
So you're a fellow Capricorn then, huh?
Yeah. So we're stubborn. See?
Yeah, like, we are very stubborn.
So I think that's honestly a really, really good quality, because I am willing to wait and be patient until I'm satisfied with the product that I'm putting out. And that's
Definitely.
the Capricorn.
Yeah, that's what we are. I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining the podcast, and hopefully we'll have you on again at some point in time, and we'll see the tremendous growth you're going to go through.
I have a couple projects coming up. Can't talk about them, but you'll see on Instagram.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood. Thank you again for joining.